Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Oulton Park. Round number 3 of the 2026 British GT Championship is almost upon us in the blazing sunshine here in the northwest of the United Kingdom. We've had a very entertaining first race of the day earlier on, and now a slightly reshuffled grid, different drivers in the cars for the opening stint. We are in for another great show, I am sure. The temperature is now into the 30s, track temperature over 40, and it has been a fairly toasty day. Andy McEwen and David Addison slowly melting in our commentary position, but enjoying what we've seen so far.
You can tell we're British. We moan when we come here and it's wet. We moan when we come here and it's too hot. It has been a long day, a very hot day, but a great day in the sunshine at Oulton. Race 1 began with Andrew Howard on pole earlier on in the day, but he lost out to a hard-charging Rob Collard, who swept round the outside at turn 1 as Mark Smith got into Oulton Tilbrook and turned him around. Ian Loggie's number 15 Mercedes was delayed, but eventually Tilbrook managed to charge back through the GT4 traffic and start to pick off places in GT3. He sorted out Loggie at Old Hall Corner. Next target for Morgan Tilbrook was the Ferrari of Cameron Campbell. That didn't end quite so well. Contact at Lodge, Ferrari went around. It was judged a racing accident. Tilbrook uncensored them. Pit stop window opened. Rob Collard came in to give way to Hugo Cook. There was contact between Jack Mitchell and Josh Stanton. A very badly damaged McLaren, and with coolant on the road, other cars heading for the gravel. That triggered a full course yellow, which became a safety car on the resumption. The Silverstone winning Ginetta of Hadley Simpson and Tom Holland bagged 3rd in class, and Ben Barneycomb's McLaren was on the charge to go 7th coming into Lodge Corner as nose to tail to the checkered flag. Rob Collard and Hugo Cook hung on to win. So that was race 1, with Ross Gunn and Andrew Howard taking 2nd place. The second race grid is based on the separate driver, separate qualifying session, and it is going to have the same car on pole position, the Aston Martin, this time started by Ross Gunn, which means Andrew Howard is free to talk to Bryn Lucas.
Thanks very much there, David. Now, Andrew, before the last race, you won't know this, but we were talking about the fact that it's very hard to overtake here, and your last win was 2015, and you're starting on pole again.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice. 23, I think we had 2 or 3 we should have probably won, with a bit of argy-bargy and me crossing lines. So, yeah, look, it's been nice. And we had a reasonable run the first race. Look, the Lambos are always going to be quick here, and the McLarens are going to be quick, but 7 seconds is going to be a bit of a bash. But, look, we're here to try and win.
That's the pit stop compensation time, the extra time you have to spend in the box before you do your handover. Your championship start has been remarkable. I mean, you've been off like a scalded cat, as they say. It's just accumulating points here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say much for the last 16 seasons between that, but I don't know what it is. You know, I keep saying it's my last season and maybe a bit of pressure off. I think having the team we've got at the moment and the way we're running, but I'm just enjoying it. It's just cool. You know, it's such a cool championship, very competitive, and they make you race your game.
We love having you here. Hopefully you'll stay for many, many more years to come. Thank you very much. I wish you the very best of luck there to Andrew Howard. Going to take a little wander over here to see a man under a brolly. He's not a Wally with a brolly. It's Morgan Tilbrook. How are you? I said you're not a Wally with a brolly. How are you? It's a good position to start in. No compensation penalty for you for the pit stop.
No, it's a really good place to start, and I think, you know, Ben's obviously a fantastic driver, so he's going to hopefully give it to me in a good place, and I've just got to keep it together and do a good job.
To win a championship in British GT, it doesn't have to be about race wins, it's consistent point scoring.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Unfortunately, we haven't scored many points to start this season, but yeah, hopefully we'll change that now.
Very best of luck. Stay nice and cool. Let's go for a little bit of a wander as well, heading down the grid a little bit, and we'll give you a bit of an idea of a few of the cars you can see. There's a lot of fans around, which is always very nice. We have alongside where we have the Lambo, the Collard and Cook Lambo just over there. They're looking very racy around this place. Rob was saying to me he's hoping really for a P4. P5 would be absolutely perfect. Simon Orange is also in a pretty decent position with Marcus Clutton, but it's been a very tough start to the season really for you both.
Yeah, it has. We did all right at Silverstone, scored some good points, and to be honest, we sacrificed this race because no tyres, so we used 2 sets of old tyres, and we have a 7-second success penalty. So we thought if we can get 5th or 6th, we'd be doing really well, and we were looking like that. And then, of course, the crash happened, and Marcus hit the. And we were a bit down on power, which hopefully they've fixed now.
But of course, now, I mean, you had that fantastic race at Silverstone, that 4th place, which was bumped to 2nd because of the cars ahead not being in the championship. This race itself, when you look ahead of you, you have no compensation time compared to the 2 cars ahead. So that's a decent thing for you.
It's fantastic, yeah. I've got high hopes for this race. So we've got 2 sets of new tyres. As you say, no compensation to success penalty. and hopefully they fix the power issue. So yeah, high hopes. I can't go much worse than the first race, but you never know.
No, don't tempt fate. But you two are very good around here. Marcus, we know, is very good around this place. He knows it like the back of his hand. We wish you the very best of luck. Andy, I'm going to head down to GT4 in just a few moments. But it's a kind of a tense grid. I'm not sure completely why. Or Ada's not sure who's picking up, but it's tense here.
Yeah, I think we're feeling that up here as well, possibly because the teams have had a little longer wait than anticipated. They're all itching to get on with it now. And with the pro drivers starting, there are some big reputations on the line here, Andy.
There are, absolutely. I know that they all realise that their goal is to hand the car over to the AMs in one piece in a half-decent position, but there's a little bit of ego involved, isn't there, when you put a bunch of drivers this talented, with resumes as strong as these drivers have, on the grid together, all starting in 2x2 formations. So, yeah, it's going to be a feisty run through the first corner. Race 1, I won't say was decided in the first corner, but certainly Rob Collard went quite a long way towards securing victory in Race 1 by getting the lead into Turn 1. Remember, he started from the outside of the front row alongside the Beach Dean Aston Martin, which then was in the hands of Andrew Howard. Well, now Ben Barnicoat must be thinking, if Rob Collard can do that, maybe I can do that, get ahead of the Aston, get ourselves some good track position, although there's a bit less pressure on it because he knows that the Beach Dean car has the extra 7 seconds to be served in the pit lane. There's still a lot of intensity involved, and they all want to get to Turn 1 first to have that clear track.
And Ross Gunn and Ben Barnicoat are two of Britain's best GT racers. Ross, a factory driver for Aston Martin. Ben, very much in demand, not only with McLaren, but Lexus in America. Very, very busy GT racer. Rob Collard there, winner of race 1. Standing on the grid, looking very happy indeed. This has been a happy hunting ground for him, for Barwell Motorsport. There is the car that is started by local hero Hugo Cook, the man from Northwich, which is about 9 miles down the road. And he will do the first stint. And you can anticipate these drivers to go longer through the pit stop window to maximise their time behind the wheel. There are 2 pit windows, effectively, because GT3 cars stop after 22 and before 32 minutes, and it's 28 to 38 for the GT4 cars. Just so there's a little bit of space in the admittedly cramped pit lane here at Oulton Park.
Indeed so, and yes, Rob Collard will be looking for another good result here. That win, his 3rd year in a row that he's won a race at Oulton Park, the 10th from 21 races that Barwell have won here with the Lamborghini. I mean, we say flippantly that they've had so much success here with the Lamborghini, but that stat says it all. 47.6% win rate, don't you know? In GT4, things I think are going to be even more competitive. They certainly were in the first race. That full course yellow did have a large part to play in the GT4 story, and hopefully we won't have a repeat of that in race number 2. Pole position held by Torre Verde GT. Jack Mitchell will start the car, but Luke Shaw is catching up now with Bryn Lucas on the grid.
He is indeed. He's a happy Luke Shaw. I mean, the season so far for you guys, a pair of fifths, that's pretty decent, and no compensation time when it comes to this race. So it puts you in a pretty decent position. I know 2 5s aren't what you'd be hoping at the start, but it's not bad.
No, it's all right. I mean, class is key. Like Pro-Am class, we've won them, so that was key. But yeah, 15, that's good. No compensation, so it's all good for this race.
What's the conditions like out there? Obviously hot, we know that, but what's it like in the car? What's it like on the track?
Very hot in the car, and the track did go off slightly in the last race before I came in, and the tyres were going off a bit, but all in all, you just manage it and it's great.
We wish you the very best luck. You'll get your race suit on, I think. Get warm. Let's head this way very quickly and speak to Jessica Hawkins, who's standing here. Sorry we're a bit late over to you, Jessica, but it's been a brilliant start to the season for you both. No race win just yet. I know that's always going to be a frustration for a racing driver, but 2 second places, it's almost perfect.
Almost perfect. I think actually consistency in this championship is what's going to win the championship. So yes, okay, we would have loved 2 wins, but consistency is key in this championship for sure.
Yeah, you certainly don't have to win races to win the championship. We wish you the very best luck. Thanks for hanging around. Just before I throw back to you, just a quick nod to the Chomp car right the way down there. Keep an eye on the very front because the Chomp car has now got a gold tooth, by the way. I was hoping to bring that to you, but unfortunately we can't get all the way down there, but it's looking very, very resplendent with its gold tooth now.
Tooth in nod to a win, and you can tell it's hot because Jessica Hawkins doesn't have her woolly bobble hat on, which is her trademark cap. We've gone for the Pirelli baseball cap instead. That proves how hot it is when you can even put your brand to one side. Right, so Ross Gunn then behind the wheel of the Beach Dean Aston Martin. His father, Ian Gunn, was a regular Mini Melia rival and teammate to Andrew Howard many, many years ago. Andrew gave Ross a real leg up to GT racing in GT4, and we've been talking about Andrew's last win being 2015. Well, it was the same weekend he had his last race win that Ross Gunn in a Beach Dean GT4 Aston won the British GT4 title. That was at Snetterton, and now they are united. Ross has never had an outright race win, not a GT3 win in British GT. He wants to right that wrong today.
Indeed he does. There's the Ben Barnicoat Optimum Motorsports McLaren, which sees Ben Barnicoat starting the 77. No compensation time. They've not had a top 6 finish yet this year, which is remarkable, and they would want to turn that around. They start on the outside of the front row in GT4, the pole-sitting car with no compensation time either. Jack Mitchell at the wheel. Jack, who's raising money this year for the BRDC's motorsport charity, aiming to expand its mental health support beyond just members of the BRDC, and to do that he's been running to all of the circuits, not from his home, thankfully, but from the BRDC clubhouse at Silverstone. He ran all the way to Oulton Park. I mean, that's but
116 miles,
something like that. Yes, a gentle jog to a running veteran like yourself, David. But to me, I break out in a sweat just thinking about it.
And he's not running to Spa, the wimp, which is largely because he might have to get his feet wet. But it's a great effort by Jack Mitchell. And there is his car, looking at the back of it now, number 42, Ginetta, as the front of the grid is ready. So a safety car start. That actually is going to help the timetable here a little bit, because we've got this race running later than planned. It's the last race of the day. There is a curfew, but of course under a safety car start, as soon as the cars move, the clock starts. So now the race is on. The clock has started, and we need Ross Gunn to get going. Then everybody else falls in behind, so you don't have extra time to add on for a warming up lap, for example. The race is on, albeit under a safety car start. What that means, of course, is it's going to be a rather different look to the run down towards Old Hall Corner. We've got 84 starting in the pit lane. That's the Revulate Blake Anglis car. Pole positions then in GT4 Silver, Will Orton and Jess Hawkins. Jack Mitchell taking pole in Pro-Am, co-driven by Luke Shaw. GT3 Silver Am, Jared Waberski. His co-driver is Alex Martin. The outright pole, Ross Gunn. And you've heard from his Pro-Am pole co-driver, Andrew Howard. So those are the 4 class pole positions. The rest of the grid, Andy, is like this.
Indeed, Beechney and Aston Martin alongside Optimum Motorsport McLaren at the front of the grid. No longer the front row, but the top 2 positions at least in the lineup. Hugo Cook, race 1 winner, starts 3rd ahead of Ben Green. Then Marcus Clutton in the Orange Racing McLaren ahead of Jared Waberski, the South African for Barwell Motorsport. Then Josh Buchan's Ferrari with Charles Clark's BMW. One to watch, I suspect, the championship leader starting 9th for Aaron Walker with Martin Plowman. They had a really good run, Paddock Motorsport, in race 1, something they'll hope to replicate in the second one. Then it's Jack Brown, Matt Griffin and Luke Garlick to complete the GT3 runners. Then in GT4, as we've said, for the second race in a row, it's Ginetta on top. Jack Mitchell pole ahead of Will Orton's Aston Martin. Thomas Holland, the Silverstone winner, starts 3rd ahead of Darren Turner. One to watch again, I'm sure. Tom Bradshaw and Ronan Pearson are next. Then Colin Turkington, he should also be able to get his elbows out in game position. Starts ahead of Brandon Templeton, whilst Joe Wheeler's Aston Martin brings up the rear of the grid. So lots of interesting storylines here, David, to unfold over the next 58 minutes or so.
And there's one other car to factor in from the pit lane, the Mahiki McLaren of Revulate and Blake Anglis. They used too many sets of tyres in qualifying, so therefore picked up a penalty to have to start from the pit lane. They've also had an engine change since qualifying on Saturday. You're riding on board, you were with Ross Gunn as we come up under the Bailey Bridge, then towards the Water Tower, then towards Druids. It was this part of the circuit where we had Josh Stanton's McLaren crash in race 1. That's down the tub, so there's no chance of seeing that in this race. There is the gold-toothed BMW now on Chomp. So it's a nod to Rexy, the Porsche in IMSA, but good to see Century Motorsport responding after the win earlier on in the day. The GT4 pole Ginetta then, Jack Mitchell at the wheel of it, as the cars now make their way down towards Lodge Corner then. This is round 3 of the 2026 British GT Championship. The cars will make their way up towards the timing line rather than it being in the side-by-side formation. It's single file. We're going to have another lap, though, in fact, behind the safety car, are we? Yes, we are. So the safety car will take them around once more. So Ross Gunn leads the way. That's the end of lap 1. So no green flag yet. Another lap behind safety car conditions, and then we can think about going racing.
Yes, indeed. So another lap for Ross Gunn to sit and think about what he's going to do. But as you quite rightly said, we won't now have that side-by-side run into Old Hall Corner. So that's one less hurdle for him to jump, maybe, to keep Ben Barnicoat at bay.
Unless Peter Daly does want that and can communicate that to the drivers via the teams, via the message line. He may want that rather than having everybody in a long, long line. We'll wait and see, but yeah, the second lap surprised me a little bit. The safety car will be in this lap, so we will go racing this time. Notionally, we are already racing. but we're hearing it is going to be a single file start to the race. There is Ben Green, there behind him is Marcus Classen. What's also interesting about this is you take 2 laps out of the pro driver's stint, there's less chance for them to make an impact for their AMs.
Especially those that have compensation time. Of course, remember, Ross Gunn, 7 extra seconds. If he could lead this entire first stint, build a gap, that helps Andrew Howard's chances then of retaining the lead after the pit stops. But you're absolutely right, a few racing laps shorter this will be now, and that's less time for Ross to try and build up that margin, and that's without the potential for an early safety car, which is always more likely in the first few laps of the race.
Lots of vigorous weaving to get warmth into the tyres. Seems almost alien to say it on a really hot day like this, but they're also getting up the tyre pressures to the optimum number. There is Jack Brown with a lot of work to do in GT3. Behind him on the road you can see Matt Griffin, and then you can see number 71 of Luke Garlick. They are 11th, 12th and 13th in the GT3 line, but Ross Gunn versus Ben Barnicoat is going to be something to savour. Lights out atop the safety car. We are ready to go racing then as Ross Gunn brings them around Druids. Hugo Cook third in the queue, Ben Green fourth. This is either going to be a mega first few laps as they all go toe-to-toe, or it could all end up in a big heap as egos clash. We'll wait and see. In GT4, you've got there Jack Mitchell ahead of Will Oulton, then Tom Holland's Ginetta in third. But at Lodge Corner, Ross Gunn is ready to pull the pin. He comes through the right-hander. Gunn is fully loaded. The green flag awaits. We go racing then fully in round 3 of the British GT Championship. Ross Gunn leads them across the line. Ben Barnicoat second. Hugo Cook third. Fourth it is Ben Green. Marcus Clatten fifth. And it's going to be a big dive, is it, from Clatten? He had a long look. That puts Ben Green just slightly on the wrong line for the corner, but Clatten couldn't force the issue nor go by. So it is Gunn, Barnicoat, Cook, the top 3.
Yes, it is. Then a gap back, as you said, to Green after that little moment at Old Hall Corner. Jack Mitchell scorching away in GT4 look, with Will Oulton unable at the moment to match his pace. An attempted a move there for Ronan Pearson up the inside of the Tom Bradshaw Porsche. Wasn't quite close enough to do that, but certainly putting the pressure on as they head down the Lakeside Straight. It's nose to tail for the lead though. Barnicoat certainly not letting Gunn get away just yet.
They're going through is Martin Plowman. That's Jack Brown in the yellow and black and white, almost new man coloured Optimum McLaren. Here are the race leaders. Hugo Cook dropping back by a couple of lengths as they come into Britain's, trying to avoid that sort of launch pad curve on the inside line. Bit of a mistake there made by Josh Buchan in the Ferrari, the Macau Gear race winner, the touring car race last year. He's going to lose out now as Charles Clark comes up and past him. The BMW alongside the Ferrari. Job done coming into the corner. Aaron Walker's Mercedes tries to get through as well. The Ferrari gets roughed up as well. Second race in a row, not quite so disastrously this time. Aaron Walker stays behind him, then doesn't force the issue after that little bit of contact. Then it's Plowman and Brown. But look, you can see the way Clark, having cleared the Ferrari, is scarping up the road. Yeah, they really lost out Sentry in the first race with the compensation time, maximum compensation time they had to serve. They were running well inside the top 5 before that, ended up 8th at the checkered flag. So understandably, Charles Clark wants to make early progress if he can and try and get that car back into contention with now no extra time to be served in the pit lane. Leaders cross the line. The lead margin is half a second. It's a length or so. But yes, you're right, they're absolutely gapping Hugo Cook, who looks vulnerable. Yeah, and I think he's a bit busy defending, which is therefore slowing him up even further against Ben Green, who has then got Marcus Classen behind him in 5th place. It's Jared Werberski in 6th. On his own, actually, Jared, the young South African driver, so he might be able to edge a little bit nearer if they carry on squabbling like this. This is Ben Green's view. The view behind him is just as intense, where Marcus Clatten's McLaren looms through Island Bend, left-hander up towards the bank right of Shell. But on that part of the circuit, Cook getting away just a fraction maybe, but Green closes him down again at Shell Oil's corner. There's quite a long list of British GT drivers I wouldn't want in my mirrors. Marcus Clutton's quite close to the top of that list, I'd say. He's known for being a feisty driver, very exciting to watch, and he knows how to overtake even around Oulton Park, so he's going to be on it for sure. You could apply a similar ruling to Colin Turkington, really, who's boxed in behind the Porsche, so he's cleared Ronan Pearson now, fellow former touring car star, and he's on the tail now of Bradshaw's Porsche. Yeah, Colin Turkington adapting to sort of multi-class racing like this, and he was saying to me after race 1, it's sometimes hard to know who you're really racing because you've got different classes, you've got cars on different laps. So in the earlier race he was having a battle with the number 24 BMW that's there behind by one car, but he wasn't really racing that for position. He was racing with another car 2 behind him in the queue, so there's having to work with your team to know exactly who it is you're fighting against, and that's also key when you're letting the faster cars through. You know, do I let this one by, or am I trying to defend for position? As much your job behind the wheel as the teams to make sure you've got the information. There are the leaders there onto lap 5 at Old Hall Corner. Barnicoat still chasing, still half a second back as there. Alex Martin, sorry, Jared Werberski, I should say, in the Alex Martin shared Lamborghini. fends off Charles Clark for 6th place, but Charles Clark is right with Jared now, looking for a way by. A lap, I think it was. We said the Lambo was on its own. Now it's got big company from that BMW.
Yes, which it's battling with for the Silver AM lead. So this is for a class lead. Both of these are silver-graded drivers, but Charles Clark, we know from the last year or so how quick he is, more than capable of mixing it with the gold-graded drivers, and he's proving that here. That BMW looks racy. The body language of the car just looks like it's on the attack. He's ranged up behind the Lamborghini very quickly, and Roberski now has some real defensive driving to do. Two completely different cars though, so where is the BMW stronger than the Lamborghini, and is it in the right part of the track to make a move?
One of the beauties of GT3 racing, isn't it? The different shapes and sizes and sounds that the cars make. The rather more sonorous Lamborghini coming out of Knickerbrook then now still being pursued by Charles Clark, heading up Clay Hill again. This lap 5, Ross Gunn, the race leader, has done the fastest lap of the race, and Waberski having to think defence, defence, defence all the way around Oulton Park. Behind them and charging now is Josh Buchan. So he sorted himself out, steadied the ship, as it were, after that contact at Hislops. And the sole Ferrari in GT3 starting to close again as they come down towards Lodge Corner. Leaders have just gone by, and as they do so, Gunn is, let's see, a little bit further away, by nearly 3/10 this time from Ben Barnicoat. Another quickest lap of the race from Ross Gunn.
Yes, it is. A 34.202 in qualifying, though. There was next to nothing between them. It was hundredths of a second that decided pole position in GT3 for this race, so I don't anticipate he'll get too far away. Jack Mitchell, though, is in a league of his own at the moment, isn't he? Look at the lead that he's got. Again, he's a gold-graded driver. Will Oulton and Thomas Holland behind, actually, are not. They're silvers, so we'd expect him to maybe have an advantage, but this is a very, very healthy lead.
So there's the race leader in GT4, which is Jack Mitchell. Behind you've got the Will Oulton-driven Aston Martin, and then for third, Tom Holland versus Darren Turner. But it is a big gap that not only is the leader got, but also second to third. Now, is there going to be a battle on for third place? Yes, Darren Turner not really able to take advantage of that as they come down towards Cascades, but he certainly sat on the tail of Tom Holland, giving him a hard time. Colin Turkington's BMW towering over the Porsche Cayman there in the hands of Tom Bradshaw, last year's Porsche Cayman Championship winner, the Porsche Sprint Challenge. And he's another local hero here from the northwest of England. Goes a little bit deep at Island Bend, but he's able just to get across and cover the line against Colin Turkington, who's got another touring car race winner behind him, and that's Ronan Pearson in the Stratton GBR, Graham Brunton Racing, Aston Martin.
Yeah, so Colin, well used to this bumper-to-bumper racing, but his reputation throughout his very successful touring car career was often one of being a very patient driver. He'd just wait for the situation to develop ahead of him. I don't expect him to force the issue too much here. Other drivers would be getting frustrated now because he could see the cars ahead getting further away. He can see the queue behind him getting longer, but Colin is a very smart racer and he will want to keep that car in one piece. Charles Clark, on the other hand, looks a lot more eager to find a way past the Lamborghini.
Yeah, Charles Clark, another champion from the Porsche Cayman Series in its first year. All over the back of Jared Waberski, the car darting around a little bit more now as Jared tries to hang on to that place. This is for 6th and 7th we're looking at. Still Gunn the leader, but last time, in fact, Ben Barnicoat did the fastest lap of the race. But for 6th, through Island Bend, Jared Waberski perhaps feeling the pressure a little bit more now. Maybe there's more movement in that car. It's a bit closer to the edge, I think.
Yeah, there was a dab of the brakes through the apex of Island Bend, which is not something that you would normally see. So he was just correcting a little slide from the car. It's a lot warmer even now than it was for race 1. The Pirelli tyres perfectly capable of running the distance, but if you don't look after them, they won't be able to look after you quite as well in the second half of the stint. So maybe he's just finding that out now, and that will be music to the ears of Charles Clark, who just needs to keep the pressure on, stay within a length or so of Waberski and try to force that decisive error.
At the back of the pack, Revy Lake from his pit lane start, but trying to make progress now in GT4, which is still being led by Jack Mitchell. Now, Charles Clark has proved he's got the speed. He's proved he's racy enough to stay with Waberski. Now he needs to try to find the gap as Darren Turner is edging closer for third in GT4 here to Tom Holland's Ginetta, the car that won at Silverstone, the Ginetta. Darren Turner with decades of experience inside that car, right on his tail. And then you've got Bradshaw ahead of Turkington, ahead of Ronan Pearson, and then behind them, 21st overall in a 23-car race, is the GT4 winning BMW from race 1. And with extra compensation time to serve in the pits, that needs to somehow get a wriggle on and get up the order. They're going to lose a load of places and a load of time on the pit stops. They're going to be even further back.
Yeah, Templeton did seem to struggle a little bit in qualifying and a bit in his stint in the race earlier on compared to those around him. He's staying on terms with the group ahead, yes, but doesn't look that likely to get past. And look, staying well out of the slipstream over Clay Hill. Wonder if he's just watching those engine temperatures a little bit, staying out of the dirty air, the warm exhaust fumes from the Aston Martin ahead. And again, look, out of Druids, immediately pulls to the inside. He's the only one doing that, so maybe his temperatures are a little bit higher than he'd like.
Certainly makes sense as a theory. I'll go with it. So Tom Holland coming out of Deer Leap in the Ginetta. He's all right. He's in clear air. Comes over the timing line then. 7 laps are done. We've got 46 minutes to go as into Old Hall Corner they come. Turkington has dropped back a bit for the Porsche, which again may be deliberate to get some cooler, cleaner, fresher air into the front of his BMW. And once the temperatures are helped, he can attack once again. And behind Brandon Templeton, you've got Joe Wheeler, who missed out on a decent result after the car was off the road in race 1 early on. Very late from the pit lane, quite a long way back behind them in turners. Here are the leaders then. Ben Barneycoat had done a fastest lap. Ross Gunn got it back last time, so very evenly matched. The 2 British brands, Aston Martin and McLaren, come up towards the end of lap 8.
Yes, they do. The Aston Martin with the narrow advantage in qualifying. But remember, in the second part of the race, when Andrew Howard jumps in, he was a little bit more comfortably the fastest AM in qualifying yesterday. If he can unlock that pace, then they're going to be a dangerous pairing. It seemed to take him a few laps to get going in race 1, Andrew. Yeah. Same actually true of Ross, who has righted that in race 2. And Andrew will have to do the same again when he jumps in the car. Turkington, meanwhile, continues to attack here. Looks to the inside into his lops, but not close enough. No, not quite. Might have to have a go down towards Lodge Corner. The door suddenly opens on Tom Bradshaw's Porsche. And let's have a look and see as they go up Clay Hill whether we can work out whether there was any contact. Turkington to the inside, little bit. Oh, yes, more than a rub there. That was quite a biff, and that's broken the catch, hasn't it, on the door? So the right-hand door on certain parts of the circuit is going to be flapping open, and my fear now is that the scrutineers want that in to be taped before the mandatory pit stop, and that's going to cost them time. That's so unfortunate, though. That little bit of side-to-side contact could easily have got away with that, couldn't they? But you're right, I think that might need to be brought in for repairs. We're coming up to 16 minutes into the race. Remember, GT4 pit window doesn't open for another 12 minutes, so they'd ideally like to fix it during the mandatory stop, but if race control have other ideas, they won't be able to do so. It's only opening on left-handers, though, so that's only affecting him for a handful of corners. Cascades is a left-hander. He's busy defending as well from Turkington, who's looking to the inside, and yep, the door is definitely swaying open. That, I'm sure, has caught the attention of Peter Daly. Yeah, indeed, and the technical team will be looking at that. I mean, it's a quick fix in a sense. You can just put a lot of sticky tape on it, but it's the time coming into and out of the pit lane. So they're rather hoping that race control look the other way, really, until they get to that window as the cars here go through Shell, deep into Shell Oil's corner goes Tom Bradshaw. He's under huge pressure from Colin Turkington. Of all the ironies, Colin perhaps one of the cleanest of touring car drivers, and it's him that's made the contact with the Porsche. That won't be lost on Tom Bradshaw as the door flaps open. But the only positive is there's cool air getting in at certain parts of the circuit. Nobody else has got this demon tweak for air conditioning, but it's also going to slow the car at certain parts of the track as well. Look up the road, you've almost got Darren Turner overlapping the Ginetta. Not quite, and Brandon Templeton still stuck behind Ronan Pearson here. Yes, he is. We ride on board with the BMW through Knickerbrook Corner. Avoid the tyre stock on the inside. Don't run wide on the exit. It's got to be really precise through that section of track in particular, which he was, although he's losing ground to the Aston Martin ahead. Through Druids then come this pair of battling cars. Holland and Turner for third, Bradshaw and Turkington for fifth. And Colin, to his credit there, could have gone past Bradshaw, couldn't he? But lifted off to make sure he didn't gain an advantage. And we have the black and orange meatball flag to the number 8 Porsche. So there's a mechanical problem you may not be aware of, and you really ought to come into the pits and sort it flag. I think he is aware, and there's the Porsche straight on cue down the pit lane. So as Darren Turner attacks the Ginetta, we lose Tom Bradshaw from the battle. It's now going to be fascinating to see how long Colin Turkington takes to get up onto the back of those other two. Now he's got clear air ahead of him. And actually, it's more than just the door, isn't it? There's a bit more damage on the rear of that Porsche. So let's see. There is lots of sticky tape, but there might have to be some more bodywork to be ripped off. It's not as rapid, this, as I thought it was going to be. I thought the car would stop, they'd stick the tape to it and fire it back out again. Let's see.
Yeah, it's not just going to close on its own. They are going to need the sticky tape, and that incident is under investigation. Gosh, Colin Turkington investigating for contact. I never thought I'd see the day.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Most definitely, but we'll wait and see what race control have to say about that. Either way, for now, he's in clean air, as you say, so we'll watch his lap times with interest. Speaking of lap times, Ross Gunn, this has been the story for me all weekend. That Beech Dean Aston Martin gets quicker and quicker and quicker with every lap that it turns. It was happening in both of the qualifying sessions on Saturday. It happened in both stints earlier on this morning, and again, Ross has just done another fastest lap, a 1:33.7 on the 10th lap of the race. In these temperatures, that's impressive.
It was Ross Gunn, wasn't it, that was the fastest man in race 1. Of course, his stint was the second stint, so later in the race. But as you rightly say, as the fuel load comes down now and the tyres are properly up to operating temperature, he's banging in these quick laps, and the gap now 1.4 seconds as you look at the race 1 winning Lamborghini. That is Hugo Cook going through in third place. Ben Green behind is still fourth, and we've now had 19 minutes of the race, and remember the window opens in GT3 at 22, but again, to make the point, many of these drivers will stay out for as long as they can to maximise their available drive time before they put the slightly slower AMs or the bronzes into the car. So Gunn, Barnicoat, Cook, Green, Classen, Waberski, Clark, Buchan, Plowman, Walker is your top 10, and the top 10 in GT3 as well.
Yes, and don't forget these compensation times. Ross Gunn might have a narrow advantage as the number 8 Porsche has now been taped up. You're right, that took longer than I thought it might, but they finally send it back on its way a lap or more down. Yes, Gunn might have an advantage. It's only 1.4 seconds, and his pit stop should be 7 seconds longer than the optimum McLaren that's trailing him. So Barnicoat, to his credit, is doing everything he needs to do. There's no point, in a sense, taking any more out of the tyres and the car than you have to when you know you're likely to inherit the lead anyway after the round of mandatory pit stops. So it's advantage optimum in theory once the stops are done. But Ross Gunn will want to try and at the very least make sure he comes out in third, or that Andrew Howard comes out in third place once the stops are done. Back to GT4, and Turkington Unleashed is setting some good lap times, isn't he? His previous lap was a 43.7, which was quicker than the cars ahead. He's definitely gaining on this lap, but look, another dynamic to throw into the mix now. GT3 cars have arrived on the tail of GT4. As
there, Ben Barnicoat, absolutely no hesitation, dives up the inside of Joe Wheeler and goes by. Aston's overlapping. This is on board with Barnicoat up Clay Hill. And it's a fairly sketchy part of the circuit at the best of times, never mind when you're trying to lap people. Ben Barnicoat gets past Brandon Templeton's BMW, powers his way then under the vehicle bridge, trying to pick his way, as you say, through that traffic, but Ross Gunn getting away a little bit. There going through is Darren Turner. Colin Turkington had actually got a lot closer in the space of a couple of laps, but that's slightly affected now by the more having to let the GT3 Aston go by. Here comes Ben Barnicoat, number 77 McLaren on the inside, gets past Colin Turkington, can't clear Darren Turner in time, so traffic slightly going against Ben here as he now just finds a gap, gets up alongside Turner, gets past the GT4 Aston. The gap on the inside beckons at Cascades. No, he gets caught up there, doesn't he? So that was Tom Holland who had to turn in to take the line for the corner. Ben Barnicoat says, come on, get out of the way.
Yeah, traffic gives and then it takes away. He gained half a second on Ross Gunn on the previous lap. Ben Barnicoat probably lost, in fact, yes, lost a lot more than that, a full second in the first sector alone. So it's a net gain for Gunn. As down in the garage, Morgan Tilbrook prepares himself for a hot stint in the car, and a stint in which he'll be hoping to at least begin in the race lead, and possibly with a 5-second or so cushion over Andrew Howard, but Howard was the quicker of the two in qualifying. It's going to be a fascinating second half of the race.
Morgan Tilbrook's not slow, however. He might not have been racing for that many years, started in Fun Cup, but he has done a lot of miles, not only in British GT, but Asian Le Mans, ELMS, Le Mans Cup, you name it, he's driven it. And remember that first season we saw him in British GT, spun on the formation lap to non-start the first round, and he won the last. He came a huge way in one season. Right, out of Knickerbrook, still Jared Waberski's keeping Charles Clark at bay. Jared there having to squeeze past Joe Wheeler's Aston Martin as they make the run up Clay Hill. Ronan Pearson is there ahead of the Brandon Templeton BMW. The GT3 pit window is open, but don't expect many, if any, early takers.
Yeah, there's a good chance that they will stay right to the end of the window, and that means it will overlap likely with some of the GT4 pit stops. So pit lane will be a busy place when we do start to see the GT3 cars coming in. As Clutton almost rubbed up alongside the Darren Turner Aston Martin. right on board briefly there with Ben Green, who's driven well under quite a lot of pressure in this stint. Marcus Clutton has been asking some serious questions of the Mercedes-AMG driver for much of the stint, but no mistakes coming yet for Green, who retains 4th position.
Slippery surface flag at Cascades. Now, that could be for debris as much as it could be for any liquid on the track. Could be for both, but not seeing anything obvious at the moment, so look for a damaged car maybe as well to see whether that gives any further clues. In silver amber, you've still got the GT3 fight here between Jared Waberski and Charles Clark, and Jared is having a really tough time. He's been under a huge pressure, virtually all stint diving through, but Charles Clark, you've got to say, he's doing a great job here, because every time there's a gap opened by Waberski, he's there as well. He's not letting that Lamborghini get away. Up the inside of the Ginetta, I'm coming through, says Charles Clark. No, not quite. Tom Holland has to turn in eventually. That's about the first time the traffic has got in the way of Charles Clark, who now is able to power his way past.
Yeah, and had he been half a car length further up the road, he could have probably forced the issue and got in the gap, couldn't he? But you'll just have to hope that now some of the other GT4 traffic starts to get in the way of Waberski. It does have a tendency of equalising, doesn't it?
Yeah, the other thing that was sort of against him, he was on the outside as well. Had he had the inside the line for the corner, he'd have got away with that. We heard on the grid from Simon Orange, high hopes for the race, he said. Well, Marcus Clutton in number 67, McLaren, is still 5th. 4th ahead of him, 18 Mercedes there, Ben Green. And they're almost together, aren't they, coming down towards Lodge Corner. So, clock ticks on down. No takers yet for the mandatory pit stop. In GT3, if you were in the top 3 in the earlier race, you have to take extra time in the pits, and the winning car gets the most. So the 3rd place Lamborghini there, just going out of shot. Hugo Cook at the wheel of it will serve an extra 10 seconds. It's a 1-hour race. There's the 2 pit windows, as we've been explaining. And in GT3, your regulation pit stop time is 70 seconds. In GT4, it's 100. But then, as we've been also saying, if you've been in the top 3, or in GT4, if you're a silver class entrant, there's extra compensation time to serve. Andrew Howard, you saw getting ready. We're working lap 15.
Indeed, so speaking of GT4, that's advantage 42, isn't it? Because they lead by a decent margin and they've got no compensation time to worry about. So I think Jack Mitchell's going to hand that car over with a very healthy lead in the GT4 category, provided he negotiates this bit of GT3 traffic well. There's the 90 McLaren working its way through. That does also have 5 extra seconds to be served, but they're just out of position, aren't they? Jack Brown never did get into a rhythm in qualifying yesterday, and seemingly hasn't had the pace to move forward in the race either.
Further up the road is Aaron Walker sharing with Ian Loggy, first time out. A new partnership as well, those two. Jack Brown getting past Tom Holland's Ginetta, and also Matt Griffin going through there. Still odd to think of Matt and Duncan Cameron in a Lamborghini, not Ferrari, that they've driven for so long. Now look at this for the lead. The gap's come right down. It was up at 9/10 for a while, but now clear of traffic. Ben Barnicoat's having a perhaps last push before we get to the pit stops. So Ross Gunn breaks the beam as he goes through at the end of 15 laps. Ben Barnicoat just half a second back as they dive down towards Old Hall Corner. This is, as we expected, a really tight fight between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a couple of hundredths between them in qualifying. We knew how evenly matched they were. And although Ross Gunn was able to steal an early march, Barnicoat has reeled him in. You can see there over the last couple of laps, traffic affected, yes, but gained a second a couple of laps ago and inched back towards the Aston Martin on the previous lap. But Ben is doing everything he needs to do. He's keeping Ross Gunn in his sights, and he knows that they should regain that lead over the course of the pit window. So it's been a really good stint this from Barnicoat. He'd have loved to have got the lead on track, but in a way, there's not as much pressure on his shoulders to do so.
So drivers are getting ready. Andrew Howard studying the pictures, studying the data, the timing screen. Ben Barnicoat will give that McLaren to Morgan Tilbrook, and coming over the brow of Hilltop, they come towards Hislops, then into Knickerbrook. So Aston versus McLaren. The pace that these two have been setting is impressive. They're nearly 8 seconds up the road over Hugo Cook. So 8 seconds, the gap, plus he's got to serve an extra 10 in the pits. It's going to be a tough stint for Rob Collard to haul much back, I fear, certainly as far as the podium is concerned, for Barwell.
Yes, and crucially, Ross Gunn is 9 and a bit seconds ahead of Ben Green, who is the next compensation time free car. So 7 seconds longer the pit stop for Ross, nearly 10 seconds ahead. He should at least come out in, no, Andrew Howard should at least come out in second position. So his goal will be simple, chase down and pass Morgan Tilbrook in the number 77 McLaren. Right,
so through they come, another lap notched off for Gunn and Barnicoat. Still the margin just over half a second, 0.571 as they go through Old Hall Corner once again. Remember, Ross Gunn has never had a British GT3 win, nor has Ben Barnicoat, as memory serves. He's really only ever been seen in GT4, so both of them would quite like victory here for personal reasons as much as to help their championship hopes. And in GT4 for third, Tom Holland versus Darren Turner versus Colin Turkington. And look how quickly that BMW has got up with the Ginetta Aston Martin fight.
Indeed so. Colin, of course, would have shared a British touring car grid with Darren Turner for a number of years back in the day, sort of before Darren went on to have this incredibly successful GT and sports car racing career. He did have a stint in the BTCC, and those two would have gone toe-to-toe for race wins on more than one occasion, so I'm sure Colin will be relishing the chance here to have a go at the Aston Martin, which he's ranged up towards quite quickly, but again, catching rather more tricky than passing sometimes around here. He's asking all the right questions of Turner, who never did manage to find a way past Thomas Holland.
No, indeed. GT4 pit window is open. It was Sayat, wasn't it, Darren Turner drove for when he came into the BTCC. There, Tom Holland goes left through Island Bend. And now the GT4 team's starting to think about when they can make their pit stops. And of course, again, in the likes of Darren Turner, Colin Turkington's cases, they are quicker than their co-drivers. They'll stay out for as long as they can. But there is the possibility now that the pit lane, when we do get stops, it's going to get jolly busy indeed. We're currently on lap number 17 here, approaching halfway.
And only half a second covering the top two cars, who have just blasted past the pit entry onto another lap. This is the GT4 battle, though, for third position. Thomas Holland, Innovation Racing, having a really strong start to the season. The win at Silverstone was headline grabbing, but actually their consistent pace this weekend and consistent point scoring so far, that could go a long way towards giving them a championship run come the end of the season. Brilliant performance, though, from Jack Mitchell. He's managed to gap the rest of the field to an extraordinary amount, really. His gap at the start of this lap was 8.6 seconds over Will Oulton, who is no slouch.
Yeah, Jack goes well in anything you put him in, whether it's one-make saloons, GT cars. He had a spell, didn't he, in the BTCC, but for some reason, probably due to lack of funding, has never been fashionable. He's never been picked up and promoted up until really starting to make his mark with Ginetta and the Tomlinson family. But yeah, Jack rarely makes mistakes, very, very rapid driver, and you can see proof of that right now as down the pit lane comes the first of our GT3 regulation stops. That is number 71, Luke Garlick, to give way. So the Mahiki car comes to the pit road.
Yeah, tyre change potentially, although maybe not actually. They've got a long time, haven't they? 70 seconds to get everything done, which is a fair chunk. For GT4, they actually lose about a lap when they pit. That 100 seconds, certainly if you start adding compensation time on, is a very, very lengthy amount of time spent in pit lane.
Yeah, it's Matt Topham who's going to get into that car, but just to also make the point, the GT3 pit window is rapidly coming to an end. We're just over a couple of minutes away from that as you look at Ross Gunn coming through. Now, 2 minutes is about a lap, so here they come now to make sure they're safe. In comes Gunn, in comes Barnicoat, so the top two down the pit lane.
Yep, so 70-second minimum pit stop time from pit entry to pit exit. That time's already started ticking down, the rest of them pouring in. It was their last opportunity to do so. But of course, we then have this extra time to be added on for the Aston Martin.
And now 71, Matt Topham might be slightly compromised because they can't really push that car back if there's a stream of cars coming into the pit lane. So that all needs managing well. Good stint by Ross Gunn. Andrew Howard will get on board, but as Andy has been saying, a slightly longer stop by 7 seconds over that of the McLaren.
Indeed so. They've got tyres waiting there for the 77 at least. We do sometimes see a mix of tyre strategies in this second race, but tyres are going on to the Beechdean Aston Martin as well. They're likely not sticker tyres. They will have probably run out of fresh tyres by this point, but maybe a set that was used in qualifying will go onto the car now to give the AM drivers the best possible chance in the second stint. Going to be fascinating then to see what the gap is at the end of the outlap between these two cars. It should be in the favour of the 77, but then does Andrew Howard have the pace to go after Morgan Tilbrook? This is going to be interesting.
So the mechanics push back the McLaren 720S. Same now for the Aston Martin. That doesn't look like 7 seconds worth of a difference, does it, as they go down the pit lane? So does that mean it was a slower stop for Optimum, or a miscalculation on the time for the release from the Aston Martin? We will see. There is now Kevin Say in third place. Fourth now is Simon Orange. Fifth is going to be Jonathan Beeson. So that's jumped ahead of Alex Martin. We've had the change. And down to seventh is going to be Rob Collard.
Yeah, that change between 78 and 44 is interesting because neither had any compensation time, so that's just more efficient pit work for Century, provided they're within the 70-second minimum, that's brought themselves a little bit of trap position.
And this is Alex Martin then, having taken over from Jared Roberski, and the GT3 pit window is closed. So now let's see what Alex Martin can do relative to Jonathan Beeson. Jonathan, new to the championship this year, new to the car, and relatively new to the circuit, because when he's been here racing in Porsches, it's been on the Island Bend circuit at token meetings. But Alex Martin, very experienced driver these days. He's done Carrera Cup GB, he's done Ferraris, done touring cars. You might put your money on him to get past, but he needs to strike now early in the stint.
Yes, he does. The BMW is tantalisingly close ahead of him, but he's not quite within striking range right now. 3 seconds, give or take, was the advantage Tilbrook to Howard at the end of Sector 1, so that's a lot less than we thought it would be. It's stable through the middle sector as well, so Howard, once he gets these tyres into the window that he wants, is actually a lot closer to being in striking range than perhaps we anticipated he would be.
So we'll wait for news of the pit stops. We don't have the pit stop times on our timing display here, as over the line goes Morgan Tilbrook. He will put a lap here on Blake Anglis, but not able to do it going down towards Old Hall Corner. So that's just going to impede Morgan Tilbrook a little. Doesn't take, of course, take the AMS a lap or so more than the pros to get fully confident and up to speed. They're coming towards us now is Ian Duggan. And there, the BMW ahead of the Lamborghini still. So you've got now Jonathan Beeson, the leader of Silver Am, ahead of Alex Martin, and actually the gap has stretched by a couple of lengths. Now, on board here, and contact, leaving the pit lane. That was Alex Martin getting into the back of the Jonathan Beeson BMW, giving him the hurry up, and I wonder if that's done any damage to the Lamborghini. Well, seemingly not. He's closer again to the BM coming out of Cascades.
Yep, down towards Island Bend. This isn't really an overtaking opportunity. Shell could be if he's feeling brave, but that was an odd one, wasn't it? Beeson didn't seem to accelerate at the pit lane speed limit line, which I think caught Martin out. And he's certainly giving the BMW driver the hurry up now through Shell. He's closer than he was a lap ago, and he really wants to try and make this move stick. Andrew Howard, by the way, has taken a second out of Morgan Tilbrook in the first half of this lap alone, so he is really starting to reel in the race leader, and they're going to catch the GT4 traffic again, because, of course, most GT4s haven't yet stopped, and they don't have to for another few minutes.
But they are now starting to make their way down the pit lane, so there is hope, perhaps, from the GT3 teams that the road will clear with the GT4 cars going to the pit lane. The GT3 stops all good, nobody short, nobody the wrong side of the regulation time. So it just looks like it was a slower stop from Optimum as Jack Mitchell arrives now to give way to Luke Shaw. Door opens, and interestingly, fresh tyres as well. So on a hot day like this, change the tyres, get the pace back in the car for the second stint. Yeah,
that's what we saw from the GT3s. You would imagine it would be the same for the GT4s. As I said, though, they won't be fresh tyres, but they'll be fresher than the ones that are coming off the car, which I suppose is the very least they can hope for. Now, Tilbrook, this is a worse nightmare for Morgan Tilbrook. He's got a whole queue of, 6 GT4 cars to deal with. He's got Andrew Howard bearing down on him, although Howard didn't have a good final part of that previous lap. The gap back over 3 seconds now.
But bear in mind, although, yes, you're right, life is hard for Morgan Tilbrook, Andrew Howard's going to have to get through them as well. Just up the road ahead there is Joe Wheeler. This absolutely is a nightmare for Morgan Tilbrook, because it's not just one back marker in the way, he's then got a whole line of them, and he's only got the outside line there coming to Britain's, and that doesn't work, so he's losing massive amounts of time. And of course, Joe Wheeler's in his own race. He doesn't want to just waste the time moving aside, because he'll drop away from Brandon Templeton. Andrew Howard getting closer and closer. Tilbrook's got past one, but equally Howard has got to do the same thing. He might find those cars at different parts of the circuit and maybe a more advantageous part of the circuit, but he's still got to pass them unless this is the lap on which they all feed into the pit lane and get out of his way in the way that they haven't done for the race leading Tilbrook.
They've got 2 minutes to do it, so I think they could do another lap if they wanted, as Howard gets his nose chopped off into Druid. So you're right, he is now starting to be delayed by the lap traffic. Who will be the most decisive in that traffic? That could decide the outcome of the race.
Interesting, though, that Jack Mitchell's got the pit stop out of the way, given that he's quicker than Luke Shaw. Tilbrook's got another scalp. That's Ronan Pearson. Right, anybody for the pit lane? Yes, yes, yes. Now the road opens up for Morgan Tilbrook. So he just encountered them at the worst possible place on the circuit, sort of half a lap away from the pit lane. Right, lead gap is 0.8 of a second. Tilbrook to Howard. Kevin Say is back at the races, third. He's close, and so is Simon Orange in fourth.
Yeah, so OK, it didn't cost Tilbrook the lead, but the damage is done now, isn't it? Those top 4 cars covered by only a couple of seconds. I think we've got a proper fight on our hands in the final stint of the race, and Morgan Tilbrook's nice little advantage that he had is no more. He's now got to withstand that pressure for 23 minutes, and that is not going to be easy to do. GT4 pit stops meanwhile ongoing.
Indeed, so you're looking at the John Hartshorn, Ronan Pearson, Aston Martin. John Hartshorn, the oldest man on the grid at 69, but a massive enthusiast for GT racing, done huge amounts of it over the years. Ronan Pearson takes over. This is Morgan Tilbrook then, who is now race leader, but Ross Gunn, Andrew Howard getting closer and closer. But look at Kevin Say. This now the third placed Mercedes is the dark horse for the win. Kevin Say has won here in the past, don't forget, with Tom Onslow Cole going back a good few years. He likes this circuit. He won here last year with Maxi Goetz as well in a wet-dry race. And Kevin Say is all fired up. So it's 3, possibly 4 for the lead as well, because you've got Simon Orange there on the back of the queue. But a battle between Andrew Howard second, Kevin Say third, would enable Morgan Tilbrook to edge away a little bit. Kevin Say now has got to be really brave. He can't get hypnotised by that Aston Martin. He's got to catch and pass as quick as he can.
Yeah, that's easier said than done around here, but he's arriving with pace, which is good. If he can carry that momentum through, that could be big. History repeated itself this morning with a Rob Collard Hugo Cook win, as was the case in race 1 a year ago. Can Say now, as you quite rightly said, win the same equivalent race that he won a year ago, although in very, very different conditions and very different circumstances. This will be a proper fight if he is to stand on the top step of the podium.
GT4 pit stop cycling through, and that was going to shuffle the order, of course, with the compensation times added in. So into the race there goes Jess Hawkins, number 21, Hadley Simpson in the black and green Ginetta at the back, and the John Hartshorn, Ronan Pearson, Aston slow away. It was John Hartshorn to take it over, and Ronan Pearson having done a first stint. That car just, yeah, it doesn't look quick at all, does it? Like it's still in pit limiter mode almost.
Yeah, it's not going as quickly as it should be, that's for sure. Hopefully he can kick it into gear down the Lakeside Straight. Here comes Kevin Say meanwhile, and I think he's going to have a go. He looked good on the brakes down here a lap ago. He's within a length of Andrew Howard, who's defending the inside, but no, in the end, Kevin decided better of that. The thing is, though, Tilbrook isn't getting away, is he? If Say can make this move soon, he's got a real shot at a win.
Yeah, he's still got just under 21 minutes to go. You're right, I was going to say Morgan Tilbrook hasn't disappeared despite these two holding one another up. Simon Orange is still there or thereabouts in 4th place. So through through Druids Corner they will go in a moment, down towards Lodge. Kevin Say in the 2Cs, Mercedes in 3rd place. Andrew Howard second, having to defend. There's your GT4 leading Ginetta up the road, with Luke Shaw having taken that over. Now that they've done the pit stops, it's fallen back in the pack somewhat. Nervous drivers looking on in the pit lane as over the timing line goes Morgan Tilbrook, goes Andrew Howard, goes Kevin Say. The leading 3 covered by 8/10, the leading 4 covered by 1.3 seconds, and last time around Howard was quicker again than Tilbrook, who has got back markers up the road. He's got Luke Shaw, the GT4 leader, ahead of him. This time to the inside he goes, but Andrew Howard wastes no time at all and goes through, and Kevin Say is there as well. So Luke Shaw terrorised out of the way. All 4 flash past him. Hold my pint, I'm coming through, says Morgan Tilbrook, and the rest follow suit.
Yeah, Howard was so desperate to go with Tilbrook. He carried a bit too much speed through Cascades. It got the job done with the pass on the Ginetta, but just dropped a length or two to the McLaren. Already, though, he's undone that damage. This middle part of the lap is where Howard does look strong, and he's ranging back up behind the McLaren. A length or 2 in it as they go through the left flick at Britain's. A good exit can yield an opportunity, and the opportunity falls in the lap of Kevin Say because Howard got much too much curve through the right-hand element of the chicane. But again, Say can't get alongside. The Aston good in a straight line, isn't it? And now it's Simon Orange on the attack.
Yeah, Orange looks to squeeze by if he can. So coming out of Knickerbrook, leading 4 still together. Just while that's going on, heading up the hill, let me quickly mention Tom Bradshaw and Colin Turkington are having to go to the stewards after that contact from earlier on in the day. Colin, you're never going to live this down. Through Druids goes Andrew Howard, still second. And now Morgan Tilbrook has got a discernible gap, hasn't he, all of a sudden?
Yeah, that little moment for Howard, maybe it rattled him, I don't know, but he just got a bit too much curb through Britain's, and okay, it didn't cost him 2nd place, but it's just knocked him out of his rhythm a little bit, and it's just that bit harder for the AM drivers to get back into the rhythm compared to the pros, who could put that straight out of their mind in a heartbeat. Howard will be painfully aware now that another similar mistake could cost him a podium finish altogether, because you can be fairly certain that if Kevin Say comes through, Simon Orange will be knocking on the door as well.
So Morgan Tilbrook now the leader by over a second. They're coming up to the end of the first sector, the significance of which will tell us whether or not Andrew Howard is going to bring the gap down, and the answer is yes, he is, by a couple of tenths of a second. So he is still pushing, and he's taking Kevin Say with him for good company. 18 minutes are on the clock. Simon Orange is the one who's just slightly far back, not really able to think about making a move against Kevin Say. This might be a master plan, though, from Simon, waiting for it to end in tears ahead of him.
Absolutely so, and it can change by the corner. We've seen that before with the moment that Andrew Howard had at this part of the circuit a lap ago. He's neater this time, yeah, I don't think Simon Orange will be panicking. Did a lot of racing in the winter in which he was really focusing on his racecraft. Oh, Simon, I think he's just missed his braking point at Hislops. Yep, bounces over the grass. I'll take the blame for that one, Simon, sorry.
So, Orange peels off the circuit briefly, but he's back on, but that's cost him a fair chunk of time. Good news for Kevin Say, takes the pressure off, doesn't it, as you look there at James Townsend getting out of the way of Mark Warren, and this car has a 1 second stop-go penalty for being short on the pit stop, only by half a second, but short on the mandatory pit stop time, and a big dive to the inside. That was Mark Smith getting up the inside, and drama because he's collected a Ferrari en route, so Cameron Campbell is fired up the escape road, suddenly saw a strange line by the McLaren, and the Ferrari got in the way. There's the McLaren stranded as well. Mark Smith trying to rejoin, and he gets the car moving once again, but drama then down at Hislops.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rodin have had no luck today, have they? Contact at Lodge in the first race. And that's the leader in GT4. Luke Shaw is off at Lodge corner, straight on into the gravel. And I don't know if that car's going to go any further. Disaster then for Toro Verde GT, who had this massive lead and now might be going no further.
That was Jack Mitchell you just caught a glimpse of. The expression said it all. Luke Shaw has gone a long way through the gravel. He's either locked up or had a failure, to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the car well off into the gravel. Let's go on board. Down through the gears.
Oh, something broke.
Yeah, car's got a problem, doesn't want to turn, won't slow down. So it is a failure, seemingly, rather than Luke Shaw making a mistake. He'll be on the radio. Do we think tyre?
I think that left front wheel is pointing at a jaunty angle. I'm not sure the right front is at the same angle.
Okay.
So steering, maybe. Who knows? It's hypothetical, but something broke definitely, and that is heartbreak. It now means the number 27 car leads the way, which we didn't really see coming, did we?
No, but what it also means is that Lodge Corner has yellow flags, and are we going to need a safety car or a full course yellow to hoik that out of the way? And if so, what does that do to the lead battle? Mark Smith has brought the paddock McLaren into the pit lane, the American driver after that clash down at Knickerbrook, so work to be done there. The leaders have just gone over the timing line, so the race continues uninterrupted for now. This looks rather terminal to me, which makes me think that had some sort of failure to contact the Ferrari.
It looked a bit like it wasn't slowing down for the corner as it should do, didn't it? It was an odd line, as you say. Could have been a fumble in traffic, but yeah, looked more likely that maybe brakes had overheated or something like that. It's been a talking point all day. This is the hottest of the two races, and you've got to look after your equipment. The brakes are capable of working in a very, very high temperature range, but they can sometimes let you down, I suppose, under extreme pressure. Yellow flags we're hearing are going to stay out at Lodge Corner for the remainder of the race, which is just under 15 minutes. So no safety car, but also no overtaking at Lodge for the duration of the race, and race control taking extra interest now in any cars that would be exceeding track limits over there.
Kevin Say on the prowl here to get up alongside Andrew Howard. This is his best chance yet. Kevin Say in the Mercedes on the outside line down towards Hislops. He's got to brake very, very late, and it doesn't work. Andrew Howard brakes just as late, and on the better inside line is able to hang on. And of course the downside for Kevin Say is that even with good momentum out of Knickerbrook here, he's just lost Lodge Corner as an overtaking opportunity, so that puts extra onus on Old Hall. So here they come up towards Druids. The teams will be saying to the drivers, yellow flags at Lodge, you can't overtake. And Kevin Say will have to recalibrate the plan as they come under the vehicle bridge down to Lodge. Tilbrook, though, now looking ever more secure, isn't he? The gap is building.
Yeah, he's settled into this now. The gap was 1.4 seconds at the start of the lap. He's taken, I think, a second further out of Andrew Howard. We are hearing, by the way, it was a loss of steering for the 42. It looked like the steering had broken, and I fear that is indeed what took the Toro Verde Ginetta out of the race.
Wonder whether that was one too many curb strikes or something more sinister. But anyway, out of the race, in the gravel it is. GT4 then now being led by the Darren Turner and Dan Lavery Aston Martin.
But Jess Hawkins in second position, David, on the previous lap, over a second faster.
Yeah.
So it's a decent gap, 7 seconds, but there's time left, and Hawkins has some decent pace in that 21 Aston Martin, doesn't she? We've seen it all weekend.
Yeah, very true. Kevin Say still attacking Andrew Howard as they all concertina at Shell. 13 minutes are on the clock now. This is lap number 28. And again, Kevin Say trying to force a mistake out of Andrew Howard. The win is looking ever less likely because they're losing time to Morgan Tilbrook's McLaren. But Kevin Say does want to get past for second place. He had a go here last time. doesn't get quite the same drive out of Britain's this time as they come over hilltop down to Hislop's, but the inside line nearly presents itself, but a bit too late for Kevin Say to shove the Mercedes in there.
It's really interesting. From the onboard, you can clearly see that Say gets off Britain's better, but then at the top of the hill seems to run out of steam. So the torque from the Mercedes engine gets him out of the low-speed corners well, but then the actual straight line speed advantage seems to lie with the Aston Martin, and that's all part of the balance of performance measures made to allow these three fairly different cars, in road specification anyway, to compete this closely together. But it's just making that overtake into Hislop a bit more challenging.
Looking there at Ben Barnicoat, he's looking on and looking a little bit more content because the gap is now 2.6 seconds as Andrew Howard comes through, the ice cream magnate. He is the man behind Beechdean Dairy Ice Cream. Perfect weather conditions for that. Maybe not perfect for being in a GT car, but he's still being able to fend off Kevin Say. And then Simon Orange going through in 4th place. But Tilbrook's advantage now is up by nearly a full second again, 3.8 and 12 minutes to go.
Yeah, you feel that Howard has now resigned himself to the fact that it's second place at best in this race. He's just got to focus on defending from Say. His one weakness seems to be Britain's, but as I said, it doesn't seem to be yielding an opportunity really for Kevin, who we ride on board with, down the gears into Shell. An earlier turn in for the Mercedes AMG driver, using the banking to his advantage, and just to try and force that error out of Howard. This is the British chicane, where he's had a few little bobbles over the curb. The Aston Martin driver missed the first of those curbs, but gets a decent enough exit in the end.
So you're looking back from Andrew Howard's Aston Martin, Kevin Say in touch, but there is the car that leads in GT4. So Dan Lavery is now at the wheel. Darren Turner's good first stint and no compensation time to serve in the pits, standing them in good stead. Down towards Cascades goes the Aston, and the gap 4.6 seconds. The gap down by 6/10 as well. Jessica Hawkins could get there before the end, but as we've seen, it's not easy to overtake. GT4 cars, though, are smaller. They are narrower, so that does give her a little bit more of an advantage, maybe. That's the gap between the two Astons. Jess Hawkins in second spot, coming up towards the left-hander of Island Bend now. In the first sector, she is quicker by 4/10. This is all looking promising.
Indeed it is. Remember, she is a silver graded driver, Lavery a bronze AM, so that's partly explaining why the pace advantage lies with car 21, but is it enough to get her a race win in GT4 at the venue she won a TCR race a handful of years ago? The GT4 battling is pretty intense, isn't it? We're on board here with the 24 BMW of Jack Collins in 5th, but he could see 3rd place just up the road. There could yet be another podium for Century here.
Thinking Aston Martin, by the way, number 97, the Hartshorn Pearson car, under investigation for a pit stop infringement as Jack Collins tries to make a move against the McLaren of Blake Anglis. There to the inside line, Morgan Tilbrook against the investigated car. And that was Joe Wheeler, James Townsend's car. James Townsend at the wheel, getting very close to Ernie Graham's BMW. Tilbrook then, 4.2 seconds clear now as he comes towards Britain's. And look how busy it is behind as Andrew Howard goes one way. Kevin Say absolutely boxed in by the traffic. There's just got nowhere to go.
Oh, and Simon Orange the same, trips over the Aston Martin slightly. That was good driving from Andrew Howard. He wriggled past Ernie Graham's BMW, and that's given him a decisive lead at last over Kevin Say. Ernie doing his best to stay out of the way. Doesn't have this much traffic to contend with in historic rallying, which is where he's come from. This is a whole new world for the BMW driver, and he's doing his very best to stay out of the way of the GT3 cars, but that was definitely an advantage for Andrew Howard.
And from the wide expanses of Silverstone to rather narrow Oulton Park, making it far more of a challenge to get through the traffic and also get out of the way of the quicker cars. Some of these pit stop infringements, we understand, is for being very slow in the pit lane, going too slowly, therefore possibly being an impediment to other cars, as Ernie Graham goes through ahead of the Jonathan Beeson Alex Martin battle for 5th place overall. They have been nose to tail, those two cars, pretty much race long. There's another investigation now coming, and it's for number 44, the BMW there. And look who's arrived on the back of this battle. It's Rob Collard. So this has got a lot to shake out of it. There's a possible penalty, and you can never, ever, ever ignore a Collard.
Absolutely not. He loves a battle, does Rob, and he's not going to back out of this, although it is his teammate in front, remember, in the shape of Alex Martin, a fellow Barwell Motorsport driver. But yeah, we saw Jonathan Beeson, didn't we, as he exited the pit lane, didn't accelerate past pit exit, and that, I suspect, is what the investigation is for. This for 3rd in GT4, meanwhile, the Innovation Ginetta of Hadley Simpson barely hanging on to a podium place.
Nose to tail they run, so the race one winning BMW trying to find a way through here. You've got Hadley Simpson, who is now third. Fourth, Blake Anglis. Fifth, about to go fourth. Is he round the outside? This is brave by Jack Collins. He's going to get the inside line for Druids. The BMW goes through. Really brave stuff. Good move that by Jack Collins. He deserved that place. Put everything on the line there. So a change for fourth in GT4. And the way that Jack Collins is going suggests he might be able to have a go at the Ginetta, as Collard has already jumped up past Alex Martin. It's every man for himself at Barwell.
Yeah, well, that didn't take long, did it? Collard had only just arrived on the tail of his teammate, and through he goes.
What did I say? You never, ever ignore a Collard.
He knows how to overtake, that is for sure. I've seen him do it many a time at Oulton Park. Now, what more can he do? He's got Jonathan Beeson ahead in the BMW. This is a replay, David, of how it happened.
You're on board with Alex Martin. Bit of dirt kicked up by the BMW. Alex Martin here comes out of Britain's. Rob Collard will be behind. He's alongside. Oh, a little bit of hip and shoulder. It's a Collard. Through he goes. Rob makes the move at the end of the straight down towards his lops. He came perilously close to the grass there, did Rob. Full commitment.
There was a part of me wondered whether that had been an orchestrated change of positions. I don't think so, having seen the replay. That was every man for himself, as you said, and Collard sort of forced his way through.
Yeah, the jury is back in now. So Tom Holland, we're on board looking at the Ginetta, on board with Jack Collins, who has really gobbled up, hasn't he, in Chomp, the space between him and the Ginetta. Tell you what, that BMW rides the curbs well, which is a good job, because it spent a lot of them being launched airborne, thanks to these new raised tarmac sections behind the curbing to stop your corner cutting. Here you've also got number 71, which is Matt Topham, who goes through to lap the Chomp BMW, and therefore, for the moment at least, actually interrupts the GT4 battle. Big shame that for Jack Collins, because until now Topham has got past the Ginetta, then that really does frustrate the BM. Big gap opens up very, very markedly.
Yeah, very quickly as well, although there's a chance Topham will catch the Ginetta at Lodge Corner, where of course he can't overtake it. The yellow flags apply to cars lapping other cars as much as it does for those fighting for position. He's not really close enough anyway, but yeah, he's not going to clear Hadley Simpson for now. There are the yellow flags, as if to serve as a reminder. They're staying there for the duration of the race. It's better than having a full course yellow and a safety car, but it does, as you quite rightly say, take away the best overtaking opportunity on the track.
And an incident involving Smith and Campbell, the incident we saw down at Hislops, that's going to be looked at after the race. So quite a lot to keep the officials here. It's better than sitting in the traffic on the M6, isn't it? There's the race leader, Morgan Tilbrook, then coming down through Cascades. He's on lap 33, and he's got just over 5 minutes of the race to go. 44, which is now being given a penalty. Jonathan Beeson wasn't for going slowly in the pits, it was for speeding in the pit lane. And there's the drive-through now being served. So that's even better news for Barwell, because it means that now Alex Martin's able to vault a place as well.
Indeed so, and Collard is released into 5th position. He's 6 seconds behind that second place battle though, so I'm not convinced even Rob Collard can bridge that gap, although stranger things have happened, especially with traffic on the horizon. They'll have another cycle through this GT4 battle. In fact, they're doing so now, and that means that Andrew Howard certainly can't afford to relax just yet. He's got Kevin Say a car length or so behind. Say has to jink from the outside to the inside there of the McLaren. Jack Collins, meanwhile, is already back on the tail of Hadley Simpson. He's having another go now at taking 3rd place away from Innovation Racing. This, remember, is where he got 4th from the McLaren, and he might try the same thing, except Andrew Howard spoiled the party and came blasting past the pair of them. I think without that, Collins might have had a go.
And the frustration now is that Kevin Say wants to do the same thing, and then Simon Orange, and just where Jack Collins is close enough, there's a yellow flag. There are blue flags being waved, but there are yellows as well. Kevin Say, what's he going to do? I think they've committed to that. What about Simon Orange? He's on the inside line, side by side round the corner. That's a bit marginal from Simon Orange, but race control might have to just accept that that was a big scrum of cars all diving down to the corner. No such worries for Ben Barnicoat. He watches Morgan Tilbrook go by. Now Jack Collins can attack safely as they get down towards Old Hall Corner. 4 minutes and counting as they drop down towards Cascades. GT4 battle is still well and truly joined, and the gap between the leaders in GT4 is just over a second, as now Collins goes to the inside of the Ginetta. Jack Collins tries to send the M4 up the inside of Tom Holland, and the car of Hadley Simpson, the Ginetta that is, number 74, but to no avail. So Hadley Simpson hangs onto the place at Island Bend. They're being caught again as well, look, by Blake Anglis. Poor old Jack Collins. Every time there's a chance of gaining ground, there's a GT3 car behind him. Collard round the outside at Shell. It's like being back on the ovals, this, for Rob Collard. Overtake wherever you can.
Oh, and he was in the dirt there as well, trying to negotiate Blake Anglis's McLaren. So Collins frustratedly not yet able to get past Hadley Simpson, but you're absolutely right, in the lead battle in GT4, that's going to be pretty much nose to tail by the end of the lap, the rate at which Hawkins has been catching. So you don't know where to look. It's a proper grandstand finish, and Hadley Simpson there very cleverly actually positions Rob Collard between himself and Jack Collins, and we'll have another moment's respite heading out of Knickerbrook.
Won't be long though before Rob Collard gets past Hadley Simpson, and that then enables Jack Collins to close again. Here is the GT4 lead battle then. So you've got Dan Lavery just ahead of Jess Hawkins as they come through. 2.5 minutes are on the clock. Need to see where they are on the racetrack relative to the outright race leader. In fact, they're just ahead, so they are going to be able to keep squeezing laps out of this. They're not dependent necessarily on the pace of the McLaren unless it laps them, but I reckon they're going to survive to the end here. So over the line they went, with the margin being half a second. Jessica Hawkins could be on for a maiden win here.
I'm not so sure Tilbrook won't catch them. So he's got 2 laps to go, so Jess has to, I think, assume that that will happen. She's got very little time to do this. Looks to the inside of the island. She's quicker than Lavery, but where can she make the move? 2 identical Aston Martin GT4s, but Jess Hawkins is the one who's had the pace advantage so far in this race. There is Tilbrook. Look, I think he's the next car behind them, so he is going to put a lap on them. So there's a lap and a half left to settle this.
Okay, yes, that McLaren has arrived on the scene rapidly. They come towards Britain's now, so they are going to drop down a lap, and Hawkins clips the curb, and that just affects the rhythm a little bit, and then gets in the way slightly, trying to sort out that moment. I think she was trying to pull out of the way, but inadvertently got into the way of the leading McLaren. So for the moment, the GT4 battle slightly affected. We've also got the Hartshorn and Pearson Aston being done with the drive-through penalty for its pit lane speed. As up the hill now goes Morgan Tilbrook. He's going to get 1 more lap out of this.
Yes, he is. Over Clay Hill then for the penultimate time. That's just given Lavery maybe just under a second advantage over Hawkins. And of course there are more GT3 cars to come with the Howard Say and Orange battle. Darren Turner looks fairly stressed out by all of this. He would love to win this race, but feels powerless at the moment. It's all down to what his AM can do with 1 lap left to defend from a charging Jess Hawkins,
who is possibly going to be affected now, look, by the Howard Say battle that comes storming past. They've dropped Simon Orange again. So onto the last lap we go. Morgan Tilbrook the leader by 3 seconds. It's been a good day for winning from the outside of the front row for a change. Both wins are going to go that way. And in GT4, maybe all of this GT3 traffic might just save Dan Lavery and Darren Turner, because it's preventing Jessica Hawkins from having a proper go, at least now, because although Kevin Say is about to go past Dan Lavery, there's still Simon Orange to get by. By the time all the GT3 cars have gone through, there won't be much of the lap left for Jessica to catch and attack again.
Yeah, she hasn't got clear line of sight yet, has she, against the Aston Martin ahead. So, and she can't overtake at Lodge Corner, we know that, because of the yellow flag. So time running out, opportunities running out, and Dan Lavery will be pretty happy about that. I think Andrew Howard will be reasonably satisfied to have held on to second position here as well. Ooh, maybe I spoke too soon about this GT4 battle though, David. Hawkins right back with him.
Absolutely so. This could yet change, although it's got to be done really at Hislops or Druids. Those are the only opportunities. We don't have Lodge Corner anymore, and this is the last lap. Nose to tail they run into Hislops. We look back and see that it's still white from green, meaning it's Lavery from Hawkins. There's Rob Collard chasing on behind and closing, but I think Dan Lavery may have got it all wrong coming out of Knickerbrook, because he runs wide. Now onto the grass goes Jess Hawkins. She's going to try to force the issue side by side up the hill. Lavery just steadies the ship and hangs on to the advantage. Here comes Collard as well. That was Jess Hawkins' best chance, and Dan Lavery so nearly threw it away.
Oh, that nearly went wrong, didn't it? But he's going to hang on, I think, to GT4 win. Here, meanwhile, is Morgan Tilbrook. He's about to win in GT3. A fantastic performance that from the McLaren crew. Optimum Motorsports celebrate. Ben Barnacote is quite pleased, I think, with that as well, and as he should be. It was a brilliant first stint from him, a fantastic second stint from Tilbrook, and what a defensive drive from Dan Lavery. He and Darren Turner win in GT4, and Jess Hawkins comes home just a length or so back. Some proper feel-good stories up and down the pit lane, and third place, I think, is going to go the way against all odds of Hadley Simpson, who spent most of his stint defending and succeeded in doing so.
Jack Collins has really been hurt there by the amount of GT3 traffic. Every time he had a chance, yet another quick car needed to get by. Brilliant job done by Morgan Tilbrook. A lot of good coaching from Ben Barnacote. And Morgan Tilbrook slowly makes his way around on the in-lap with the pickup now, getting offline to help with the ride height and the weight of the car. Great job done. And a very happy Darren Turner goes and thanks and congratulates every mechanic, ever the team player, Darren.
Absolutely so. He will be absolutely delighted and making the point, as you said, of shaking the hand of every team member in the garage. He never takes it for granted, does he, Darren? He's won an awful lot of races over the years, but each one is special, and he knows that one was particularly special because I'm sure it's some of the coaching he's been giving Dan that allowed Dan to defend that lead and hang on to the victory. Fantastic race, though, in both classes. We didn't really know which way some of those battles were going to go until the final corner or so. I enjoyed that.
Dan Lavery's first British GT win, and a deserved one. It was here that it nearly went wrong, wasn't it, on that last lap coming out of his lops into Knickerbrook. The car just got away from him. It ran slightly wide, 2 wheels onto the dirt, but he was just able to move across. He's getting a flashback now as he goes past that part of the circuit. But Jessica Hawkins, even with 2 wheels on the dirt, couldn't quite make the move and couldn't quite make it stick. So, a really entertaining afternoon at Oulton Park with category wins in GT3 and GT4 for Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnicoat, for Darren Turner and Dan Lavery. The classes within, silver am in GT3 to Jared Werberski and Alex Martin, and silver in GT4 to Jess Hawkins and Will Oulton.
Yep, so Optimum Motorsport celebrate a victory in GT3. Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnicoat with Ross Gunn and Andrew Howard. They're going to have to keep waiting for that race victory. Well, they've had a really good points haul this weekend from a championship point of view. 2 C's were third for Say and Green, with Marcus Plutman, Simon Orange fourth, and Rob Collard and Hugo Cook in fifth. Alex Martin and Jared Werberski, as David quite rightly says, class winners there in sixth, ahead of Mark Warren and Jack Brown, with the second century BMW in eighth. Ninth for the 2 C's Walker and Loggy car, and the top 10 completed by Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin. In GT4, Dan Lavery and Darren Turner hang on by their fingernails to claim the victory. Jess Hawkins and Will Oulton have to settle for second, and it's Innovation Racing again, picking up good points. They've had a really consistent start to the year with a first, a third and a third in the first 3 races. Then it was the Century BMW and the Mahiki Racing McLaren. Good to see them inside the top 5, ahead of the Townsend Racing Machine in 6th position after a breathless 60 minutes of racing. Well worth the wait, I'd say, David.
I would go along with that, yes. And there is the ultimate traffic jam, as some cars are taken to scrutineering, others are taken down the pit lane. Drivers will then be required for the podium. We'll get a chance to hear from our class victors, but a really good drive that by Morgan Tilbrook, and coped well with the traffic and was able to build that gap over Andrew Howard. He did look vulnerable, as you were making the point, early in the stint, but then he regrouped, got his head down, and came storming through. Not quite sure why he is now back at Foster's. I think Morgan Tilbrook rather missed where he was being waved to and carried on for another lap. So he's taken the Foster's cut through, the Foster's loop, the short circuit, and now you've got a very different look out of the front of that car. Nothing like celebrating your win, is there? But he might end up with a bit of a ticking off for going round again. But anyway, he's still waving and thanking all the marshals, so all is good. And you can see that at the end of the day, the incident vehicle's quickly dispatched onto the circuit. Now with the proviso, careful, there's a McLaren behind you.
Yes, that wasn't in the script, was it? But Morgan Tilbrook doing a lap of the old Foster's circuit, which isn't really used for racing anymore these days. Interestingly, the WSR BMW didn't make it back to the pit lane, did it? That stopped on the way in. Anyway, Morgan Tilbrook will be with you shortly, Bryn, but I believe you found his teammate Ben Barnicoat.
He might not. We just don't know. Ben, your teammate is so ecstatic, he's done another lap.
Yeah, victory lap. Why not? I mean, we were here much longer than we wanted to be today, so I don't blame him. After that performance, obviously, hopefully we don't get in trouble for it. You know, it'd be a shame for the day to end like that. But just so proud of Morgan. You know, it's been a bit of a rough start to the year for us. It could have been much smoother, but he did a flawless job there. Great in traffic. Just so proud of him. Apart from for missing the pit entries, just getting here now.
Well, like you say, he just wants one for himself. Talk to me about how you've gone about this race here, because I think coming into it, I mean, a 5th at Silverstone with the cars that weren't scoring, and a 7th meant you had to leave here with a really good second race result.
Yeah, it was, you know, there was a lot of pressure heading into that race. As you said, Silverstone 500 were in such a good spot, had such a fast car, and it just didn't quite work out. Historically, this isn't a McLaren track, but Friday and Saturday looks really good for us. I was fast, Morgan was fast. So we were probably a bit disappointed with how race 1 went, but yeah, we made up for it there, made it count when we had the opportunity. It's all about, we had a bit of a steady start, but we're here and we mean business from here on. That'll have done the world for Morgan, and we're so happy.
Well, Morgan is here right now, and he's so ecstatic. He don't want to hide the mic in case there's some fruity language here, but Morgan Tilbrook, an extra lap of honour there for yourself. A victory lap. Last year, you said to me that you couldn't really enjoy the season because you're in with a championship fight. Now, I imagine this season you'll quite like a championship fight.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've definitely got a good guy with me to help me have a go at it. But I mean, there's actually quite a lot of stress, you know, because although he gave it to me to a degree on a silver plate, when it comes on a silver plate, it's like, oh my God, don't make a mistake. I kept telling myself, test session. I just treated it like a test session.
But you had the pressure, didn't you, all the way through, especially at the end. I mean, it wasn't a simple fix for you both. No,
it wasn't. There's a lot of GT4 traffic. I actually went over a lot of debris on the first lap out, and I thought, oh God, I'm hoping I've got a puncher. But no, do you know, it was. I enjoyed it. I tried to keep my head down, not try and think about the whim that was on the plate that this man gave me. And I was just really pleased to bring it back in one piece and not have any issues or penalties or get some points, right? Something you said I didn't have.
You got some points. You got some points and some lovely compensation time as well for Spa. Go and get your trophy. Well done.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
So great drive that by both Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnicoat. We said before the race started, Ben is a much in-demand GT racer, both in Europe and in America. You can see why, setting up a good win for Morgan Tilbrook there. Evidence also of how the McLaren rides the curbs.
And the abuse the car takes, the headlight rattling away behind the front bodywork there. Morgan Tilbrook pushing on, and well, feels like he's up for a championship challenge this year. That's interesting, isn't it? As Bryn says, that's a slight difference of opinion from 12 months or so ago. And it's a good job because he's right in the thick of the championship battle, which is led by Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn in the Beach Motorsport Aston Martin. It's been a while since we said that, David.
And then Tilbrook and Barnicoat only half a point ahead of Jonathan Beeson and Charles Clark, who are 5 up on Alex Martin and Jared Roberski. Then Simon Orange and Marcus Clutton come next. So we do, after 3 races, have a really intriguing situation within GT3 and a really good GT4 battle raging on. Darren Turner and Dan Lavery are our winners at Oulton Park. It's another win for Darren, but a really significant first win for Dan. Let's get back to Bryn.
Context is key, isn't it? Not a great Silverstone for you, a 6th place earlier on in the race here, and then you come along and you have a brilliant fight and you have to hold off the Aston Martin, the green Aston Martin, driven by Jessica Hawkins.
Yeah, it was. I could see her slowly but surely getting closer. She did a great drive from Jess. And it all came to a head in the final lap. Some contact with a GT3 car, nearly off the circuit, but luckily we held on, so super pleased.
What have you been learning from Darren? I'm sure every day's a learning day with Darren, but what is the one big thing that he's been teaching you?
Just consistency, being able to repeat as opposed to worrying too much about like overall just one lap. Like consistency, being able to do that and just staying calm is really key.
I'm not sure he was calm. He was watching on. In fact, he's here now. He's made it. He's jogged all the way. It's lucky you're trim. It's lucky you're trim. You're watching on there. Were there any emotions, any stress going on? Or did you know that Dan had it from start to finish?
I thought he had it until that last run through Knickerbrook, a bit wide there on the grass, and I thought, oh no, this is lost that momentum up the hill. But he kept it together, and just so happy for Dan, for the team at Grange Racing. Just a great result, you know, to come back from a bit of disappointment in the first race and then have a race like that. Dan drove a exceptional second stint, so just super happy.
Now, having in my ear a question to ask you, Darren, how many years you've been winning races for Aston Martin now? Because I mean, if we cut you in half, you are just rings and rings and rings of Aston Martin, aren't you? Yeah,
I don't know. 2005 was the first time with an Aston Martin, so I can't do the maths. Is that 21 years, something like that?
Okay. But it's been asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, it's both of us. But yeah, it's been amazing to be part of the brand for that many years. To still be racing these cars, GT3s, GT4s, they're just incredible to race. And you know, we're on a new adventure with Grange Racing FSR. It's race 2 and we're already on the top step, so amazing start.
You've done a fantastic weekend. Well done, both of you. Congratulations.
Cheers.
And just taking what we've had today into account for the global GT4 points, Toyota ahead of BMW M, and then Porsche, Mercedes 4th, and Aston Martin 5th. GT4 so popular around the globe. As far as British GT4 is concerned, Tom Holland and Hadley Simpson are your category leaders from Will Orton and Jess Hawkins, and then 3rd are Jack Collins and Brandon Templeton. A dramatic race at Oulton Park began behind the safety car. It made a single file start, and Ross Gunn powered into the lead on the way down towards Old Hall, with Ben Barnicoat behind him in 2nd place. Marcus Clutton tried to find a way past the Ben Green Mercedes, but could not do so, as Ross Gunn tried to build the gap up front. Barnicoat, though, trying to stay with him as they dropped down through Cascades and then made the run along Lakeside Straight. While in GT4, it got rather frantic. Colin Turkington getting into the side of Tom Bradshaw. Both of them ended up to the stewards. Eventually, traffic started to play its part. The Tom Holland, Hadley Simpson, Ginetta getting in the way of Charles Clark's BMW. He eventually went powering past. And when the pit window opened, in came Ross Gunn to give way to Andrew Howard. But with extra time to serve in the pits, they lost a lead they were never to get back to Morgan Tilbrook, who relayed Ben Barnicoat. For others, such as Jonathan Beeson, Alex Martin, Rob Collard, there was so much traffic to have to worry about. And dramas for Luke Shaw's Ginetta. It was leading in GT4. It ran wide coming out of Shell Oils and ultimately would end up in the gravel. There was drama too for Cameron Campbell's Ferrari. This was the demise of the Ginetta. Out of the lead of GT4, suspension dramas, steering failure into the gravel. Luke Shaw and Jack Mitchell out of the race. Morgan Tilbrook started to pull away. For second, Andrew Howard was able to fend off Kevin Say. Simon Orange battled his way to fourth place. Checkered flag at the ready. Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnicoat taking a first win together and getting themselves to second in the championship. A delighted Ben Barnicoat, a delighted McLaren team as well. Optimum Motorsports scoring honours. It was a 1-2 for Aston Martin though in GT4. Dan Lavery nearly came a cropper at Knickerbrook on the last lap as Jess Hawkins tried to get past, but Dan Lavery and Darren Turner hung on to win GT4 in an all-action Oulton Park.
Congratulations, gents. If you want to jump.
So drivers to the podium. There, Kevin Say and Ben Green for third place in GT3 Pro-Am. Then we have Ross Gunn and Andrew Howard for second, making their way to the podium. And it'll be a very noisy top step for Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnicoat, their first victory together in British GT. It looked at one point as though Kevin Say might have been able to do something about even a win, but as he turned out, struggled to get through the traffic. But for Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnicoat, a really, really impressive performance.
Yeah, absolutely so. I mean, Morgan in particular there, withstanding the pressure from the cars behind. It turns out it is quite difficult to overtake at Oulton Park as it happens, but Kevin Say and Andrew Howard gave it a really good go. Tilbrook, though, just doesn't make as many mistakes now, does he, as he would have done a few years ago. He's come on leaps and bounds over the last few seasons, and he will celebrate now with Ben Barnicoat. Race victory at Oulton Park.
We'll then move to the champagne bit, but looking good in the sunshine here at Oulton Park with those trophies. And now the champagne.
So McLaren, Aston Martin, Mercedes AMG, the top three. Good variety in terms of the brands. Happy drivers celebrate in the sunshine, and Ben Barnicoat makes sure that Morgan Tilbrook gets as much champagne as possible.
It's a warm day. I'm sure he sort of appreciated the cooling off there from his teammate.
So now then the drivers make their way off the podium, and next stop is going to be at Spa, of course, where they will have the longer race and a really busy grid. They're going to be joined by the Europa Alpines, French GT as well. Right, GT4 overall already is there. Third, you've got Tom Holland and Hadley Simpson. Jessica Hawkins, so near and yet so far. Will Orton with her for the win. And Dan Lavery and Darren Turner, winners in GT4.
Yeah, popular winners by the sound of it. A huge roar from the crowd down below the podium. And Darren Turner makes the familiar journey to the top step of the Oulton Park podium. But as as I said, he never takes these wins for granted, and doing it for the first time now alongside Dan Lavery is very, very special, I am sure. Will Oulton and Jess Hawkins, though, they're putting together a strong early campaign, aren't they? They've been quick all weekend, and they'll be hoping they can carry that pace on into the Spa 2-hour race to come in a few weeks' time, as of course will Dan and Darren. Big smiles on the podium as Darren Turner and Dan Lavery celebrate their first victory together in British GT.
So Aston Martin 1-2, Ginetta 3. More good results for British brands here, and Darren Turner familiar with how to go to the top step of the podium, familiar with the champagne. Good to see Jess Hawkins and Will Oulton going well once again, and the Innovation Racing Ginetta having a good run as well. Other cars then down the pit lane and ready to go back to their teams. The technical team doing whatever is required to make sure tyres are all good. Next podium is in GT3 for our Silver AMs. So for third there, Jonathan Beeson and Charles Clark. Mark Warren and Jack Brown take second in Silver AM. And Alex Martin and Jared Waberski will go to the top step.
Yeah, Alex surviving that little skirmish coming off pit lane with Charles Clark, who was later penalised anyway, and that means that he and Jonathan Beeson are only on the third step of the Silver AM podium. And Barwell Motorsport celebrate another win at Oulton Park. I don't know whether these Silver AM wins count towards their already impressive Lamborghini record here at Oulton Park, but it's certainly a team and car combo that works, regardless of what class of driver they've got in the car. And yeah, for Jared and Alex Martin, a pretty flawless performance. They've been there or thereabouts all weekend long, maybe lacking the ultimate pace of the Pro-Am entry that won the first race overall, but they've scored good points within the Silver Am Championship, and they'll be there or thereabouts, I suspect, in overall points.
Longer race at Spa as well, so slightly greater compensation times, just to add another factor into it all. But well done to Jared Waberski and Alex Martin as the Silver Am winners. And there might be a Silver GT4 podium yet, because or a Pro-Am one, because it was a mix of the two classes when we had the top three on the podium itself. There, Jack Collins and Brandon Templeton go to the podium. Jessica Hawkins and Will Oulton are victorious in silver. Tom Holland and Hadley Simpson there for second in class. So that's the Silver GT4 podium, the Pro-Am victors being the outright GT4 winners as well. So it's not quite the class win, but it's a subclass at least to celebrate success therein.
Yeah, the word for Jack Collins, who really was Mr. Excitement, wasn't he, in both races actually. He was really rapid, and Brandon Templeton getting stronger with every round as well. A class podium, but that was a car that always looked like it was on the attack. But as we've said, the next venue at Spa, a completely different challenge. It may suit different cars, and we could see another turnaround in form as Jess Hawkins struggles to get the cork off the bottle of champagne, and then gives the backdrop to the podium a good soaking when she does get it out. So celebrations on the podium, and yeah, good day all around actually for that number 21 squad across both races.
And that's probably going to give us the Pro-Am podium. Darren Turner and Dan Lavery back for the top step. And of course the next stop is going to be Spa. John Hartshorn and Ronan Pearson though are there for third in Pro-Am. Second in Pro-Am, it'll be Joe Wheeler and James Townsend, and the top step of the GT4 Pro-Am podium is going to be for Dan Lavery and Darren Turner, back for yet more silverware and more champagne. If you are thinking of going to watch the next round of the championship at Spa, I would commend it to you, because it's a great circuit, and it's going to be a fascinating race with lots of other championships put onto one bumper grid. So there, the trophies for our Pro-Am victors, and Darren Turner and Dan Lavery take the silverware after a fabulous second race here at Oulton Park.
Indeed so. So the final corks come out of the bottles on the podium, and an opportunity to cool themselves down, the drivers, after a hot day at the office, but a fantastic pair of races here from Oulton Park. We'll see you next time out at Spa.